Hello and welcome to On Public Square, a City of Clarksville podcast where we get to know the amazing city employees that help keep the lights on. They're our friends, our family, our neighbors, and each of them has a story to tell. Now, let's say hello. And hello and welcome to another episode of On Public Square. I am revisited today. I think this is our first time having a guest for the second time, but we have Lauren Winters, our grants director, back again. Hey, Lauren, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing well. It is Friday.
Yes.
Friday. But just to review, I don't think we talked a lot last time about grants. We were talking about some other things. My brain is soup this week. I don't even remember what we talked about last time. But today we're talking about your role as grants director. Largely, can you just start by explaining what a grants director does?
Yes. So as grants director, I am responsible for the grant function for all of City General, and then kind of helping piece together other entities as well. I always have to start by saying I have a son named Grant. He's 9, and my son was not named after my job. I feel like people ask that or want to ask that sometimes, but Grant is a family name. But I have been in this grants director role for almost 3 years. And so I work in finance and revenue, and I am passionate about just trying to connect federal and state dollars back on the local home front, and just making our community the best it can be.
Wonderful. I didn't know that about your son. That's hilarious.
I feel like people want to ask me that when I'm like, oh, my son Grant. In fact, I even joked when I applied for this position. I've been with the city since 2008. And when I applied for it, I joked, I'm like, on my application, could I technically say I had, 5 years of grant management experience because I had a 5-year-old named Grant. So there you go.
That is wonderful. So is that how long you've been here then? I didn't know that.
I started here in 2008, and I was meant to be a temporary part-time position down in finance and revenue. I went to Austin P. I was a sophomore and got in here and was like, okay, I think I like local government, and kind of pivoted a little bit in my studies. So corporate communications and then business. I know that's an odd combination, but it worked. And so now it serves me well in the grants director role.
That's why we tend to get along pretty well work-wise. I didn't know you had a communications experience. That explains a lot.
Corporate comm kid.
I similarly had no experience doing stuff like this really until I got here and came from teaching, writing, and theater.
Yeah.
But that kind of still goes with communications.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways. But that's awesome. So I guess just starting out, what are some projects you've had here lately? Or let's start with, what is a grant? Let's really dig in.
Great. Okay. Great question. Yeah. So a grant can look a couple different ways, but the ones I focus mainly on are federal grants or state grants that are federal pass-throughs. So our big focus here is we want to make sure we already have a program, a position, an initiative in place, and then we want to go seek grant funding. We don't want to do that in reverse because it's really difficult sometimes to have this great grant and then scramble and go, oh no, what are we going to do with it? So with a grant, there's a whole process. There's an application process. I work directly with department heads or their designees, and we fill it out. There's a lot of narrative writing. That's where communications comes into play. And once we apply, I help see it through the contract phase and then report on it financially and programmatically. And so yeah, that's kind of the dating profile of a grant, if you will.
That's awesome. I feel like that somehow, I like the way you described the approach better, having a project in mind and then seeking a grant for it. I feel like that's something that a lot of people think is the other way around.
Right.
That a city or a state or whatever public entity, oh, we just got this big grant, we need to find an excuse to spend this money.
Right. And it helps when you're forming that narrative to sell it because you're passionate about it, because you've met with these people who are going to directly benefit from it. And so you're like, okay, now I know what I'm fighting for, right? And I feel like it does make my writing more competitive when we have that passion and that program project lined up and we're just waiting.
Yeah, that's something that we've had several of our grant folks on the podcast. We've had Michelle Faust, we've had you, we've had Carly over at Gas and Water. And something that always kind of gets me with that line of work is the word you used, competitive. That
Yes.
you are all very driven people.
Yes, and it's competitive in the sense that you're always wanting to win for your home team.
Mhm.
So I'm a native Clarksvillian. I have that background in finance and revenue. So I think of a lot of things in terms of the tax rate, right?
Mhm.
And how much a penny of that tax rate generates. So I get really excited when I win a competitive bid or a competitive grant. And I'm like, ooh, that was 3 pennies on the tax rate. Like it just feels, for me, I get really excited about that. But yes, it is very competitive. And a lot of times it's called the Notice of Funding
Mhm.
Opportunity, NOFO. I know that sounds weird, but that's what we call it. And I'll look at the number of awards nationally or statewide that are going to go out. And early on, kind of in this journey, I would be intimidated if it
Mhm.
said 100 awards nationally. Now I'm like, bet. Okay, let's see. Let's see what we've got here. So
Love it. That's really cool. Do you ever like when you see those numbers come in? I know sometimes like I've had jobs where I'm managing like a massive social media site and it's like I don't like that I am hitting send on an email to 112,000 people. Do you ever
yes.
see a big number and are just like, how did I get here?
Yes. And then, sometimes here we will apply and maybe we'll talk about it later. But, one of our large federal grant applications we've put out, it resulted in me somehow getting interviewed on television news. So you want to talk about being intimidated and just being out there for the world to see, but it's easy to talk about grants.
I do
So
remember that. And that's probably we can talk about what grants have been in the works lately. And I remember that particular interview, and that is a really cool initiative that's going on. So I'll let you introduce it, though. What are some cool things going on in the world of grants in Clarksville here lately?
So I'll talk first about grants that we have, received or been awarded. I'm very passionate about sidewalks and connectivity and just making sure that folks can get where they need to get safely. I think we all benefit from that. So we have had some sidewalk projects awarded recently. We've also received some grants for fire training as they work for accreditation
Mhm.
for that. We also are currently in the programmatic follow through of energy efficiency. We have a rather large grant from the Department of Energy where we are looking to do some LED retrofitting for streetlights. We also have overtime grants for the police department
Mhm.
where that just keeps us safer. One grant that this is a couple years old, but one I absolutely love. It was one of my very first quote big ones that I got. Again, going back to that
Yeah.
competitive, edge. The police department has a law enforcement mental health wellness counselor
Mhm.
that is 100% grant funded, and that is something I'm very passionate about. When you look at the statistics related to, serving in public
Mhm.
safety and just overall mental well-being, it's really exciting that
Mhm.
Clarksville was able to snag that and get such a great one in Mr. Forbes.
Our first episode.
There you
I'm
go.
very pleased with that
Perfect.
particular one too. That I
Yeah.
thought that was a huge win. I was so excited about that one.
Yes, and that is one that we have. We love some that are currently going on. So I am on track right now. I don't know, probably to submit 40 grants this calendar year, which is a lot. But right now I am working on one, or actually two, related to the tree canopy, related to especially focusing in those lower socioeconomic areas, as well
Mhm.
as areas that were impacted by the December tornado. So we're looking into that. I'm also working always with FEMA and TEMA. We've
Mhm.
got natural disasters that are occurring, and so those aren't grants, but they're treated as
Mhm.
such. There's a lot of information, a lot of meetings. Just had one
Mhm.
before this. Actually, had a FEMA follow up this morning. Also, again, working on sidewalks.
Mhm.
Safe Streets for All, that just went out, and that focuses on the New Providence Boot Heel area, as well as Craft Street, and just doing some access management,
Mhm.
making sidewalks, safer crossings for individuals who frequent that area.
Mhm.
And then also one that I'm really excited about that I've been working on this week is related to preservation at Smith Traherne Mansion.
Mhm.
So I'm a big history nerd, and I have very much enjoyed getting to read and kind of make passionate about that. So that's what's in the queue right now.
That's really cool. The through line I'm kind of seeing with a lot of this stuff that I find really cool, really interesting is that, well, two things. One, it seems like a lot of this has to do with like need assessment. And I really didn't connect it with the FEMA stuff. I'm sure with the storms late last year and the recovery from that kicked in quite a bit of needing to find those needs and see what we can do to
Absolutely.
help. But on top of that, I like that it seems like it really lets you get to dream big and imagine a a Clarksville that you want to see in the future and then go after those things to make it happen.
Absolutely. And my thing with grants, especially, with federal funding, is we as taxpayers,
Mhm.
we are already contributing to these causes, right? So why not bring it home? Why not bring it home here and let us also receive that benefit? And so there are so many there's so many places that we can use grants. So, like I just mentioned, everything from police, mental health, and
Mhm.
overtime to tree canopy to historical preservation. We just received a grant. I can't believe I didn't mention this. It happened this week. We just received a grant to completely overhaul Ewing Burchett Park by way of the Community Health
Oh,
Foundation
wow.
in partnership with the Clarksville Firefighters Foundation. And so making it accessible, which is something else I'm very
Mhm.
passionate about. So I just kind of think of us like a big dinner plate, and we're not just eating one thing. We're not just
Yeah.
doing one type of thing. We're trying to have that variety. It's a buffet, a grant buffet, if you will. And like I mentioned, I work for all 19 city general departments. And
Wow.
so someone comes to me, has an idea, has a plan, has a program. Okay, let's go.
Love it. That's really cool. And I'm glad to hear about the park one. I always love hearing about new parks stuff in particular.
Yeah,
All about the green space improvements. Wonderful. But where that does lead us into, you used a keyword for today's episode, which is accessibility. One of the main things I was hoping to talk about today is our Accessibility Enhancement Committee, which I believe is about to reach its first anniversary of existence or just recently did.
yes.
Um, this is something I've gotten to be involved with you along with the rest of the group, having helped with communications for the Accessibility Enhancements Committee. But it's one of my favorite things that we do on a regular basis. And can you just tell us a little bit about what the Accessibility Enhancement Committee is?
Absolutely. So, as I had previously mentioned, accessibility is something that I am very passionate about. And I love when your passion can meet your profession and they collide and they do great things, right? So, about 2 years ago, I believe it was, we were
Mhm.
invited to participate in the Alex Spend a Day in My Wheels Challenge. Emily Mills and her mom, Stephanie, helped facilitate that. And Mayor Pitts invited me to participate. And essentially, you were to spend your workday doing what you would normally do, but you were in a wheelchair. And I consider myself to be in pretty good shape, pretty good health. And I thought, okay, yeah, absolutely. Like this would be really cool. When I tell you my ab muscles do not exist, and I was not aware until, spending a day in that and just going about City Hall, doing my
Mhm.
regular business. And one of the things that I did is I went downstairs because, again, I work for finance and revenue, went downstairs and really thought of a comment that was made by Alex. And he said, it's really important to get to have that eye contact. And for those obviously who can't see me, I'm doing the I'm looking at you symbol
Mhm.
to Casey there. And so I looked up at my ladies who work at the revenue counter and I was looking up in my wheelchair and I thought, I wonder if we could lower this countertop. So that started this, hey, Mayor, what do you think? Absolutely. Went to my boss, the CFO. What do you think? Sounds great. And it kind of led to this capital project, which City Council formally adopted and
Mhm.
created. And we're so thankful for their partnership. And we were given a capital project multi-year that we could start
Mhm.
kind of putting these things in the queue. So we thought, what can we do? Let's make a committee, an Accessibility Enhancements Committee. And we have representation from various city departments. Working together with municipal properties, we came up with a list of projects. We prioritized them. How quickly can we accomplish them? In-house, contracted out, things like that. And we have a living, breathing list. And I'm happy to say we have made
Mhm.
progress on that to include 2 newly lowered countertops down in the Revenue and City Court offices.
Yes, they look so good too. We published a
Yes.
story about that. If you would like to see them, go to the City of Clarksville website, and you can find a news release just a little ways down, I imagine.
Yes. And so that is just one of the things we've done. And you can also go to the City of Clarksville's website and go to the Accessibility Enhancements tab,
Yes.
and that gets updated monthly. So we're
Mhm.
letting you know kind of where we're at. And one of the questions that has come up before is, the difference between ADA and then accessibility enhancements. And so we very consciously have chosen accessibility enhancements as our group name
Mhm.
because we want to do more. right? It can't be fixed in a day. We know this, but we are committed.
Mhm.
And if it's not proven through our committee, our capital projects, through our construction, we hope you look at that and feel like we're making positive change.
Mhm.
And we also invite folks online to submit
Yes.
ideas, requests, things like that, of what they would like to see added, throughout the tenure of this project.
Mhm. And we've had several great suggestions. Some of the projects on there that stuck out to me, of course, making sure that as many as possible doors, entrances to buildings have button operated assistance so that you can press the button to open the door. The counter lowering projects, but one that I wouldn't have thought about till I saw it on there is making sure there are accessible pathways to
Mhm.
like our picnic tables at the parks.
Yes.
That's one I would have never thought about till I saw it on the list. And it was pointed out that, hey, we have picnic tables that not everyone can get to. We need to
Right.
make sure there are accessible pathways.
And it's important to note too that grants also contribute to the Accessibility Enhancements Committee, because that's one of the things we look for too is the funding source, right? How can we do this? So one project that we did was at the Wilma Rudolph Event Center, and we have an adult-sized changing table that is installed there. And that is one thing that you might not realize the benefits of it until you know someone personally who needs that for their child. And my dream would be to have a network of these adult-sized changing tables so that families can plan their day out, right? So private businesses, other governments, they can also apply for these grants, and they have recently raised the limit. So it covers even more of the cost of the adult-sized changing table. So
That's
I will
awesome.
sell that initiative all day long. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah.
I'll help you out.
Very cool. Is that something? Do you ever have other local entities, nonprofits, businesses that have reach out to you for like advice on finding grants?
Not for accessibility, but I do have some local municipalities who have reached out to me. We have something called MTAS
Mhm.
through the University of Tennessee. It's the Municipal Technical Advisory Service. And they have sent some folks my way just to kind of pick my brain, if you will. I am always happy to share. Yes, I am competitive, but I'm always happy to share my knowledge. I'm a firm believer that a safer and a better Tennessee, it still benefits me. So I've helped a little bit in that regard with just kind of pointing folks in the right direction and helping them. It's a lot to take on if you walk in and you don't have a process yet. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, hey, this is the process that works for me. I also always have to disclose that I'm an educator's child. So I'll send them like flow charts. I'm like, I made this flow chart. Full disclosure, I'm a teacher's kid. So
I'm learning a lot about you today.
Yeah.
Where's your parent teach?
my mom recently retired as the principal at East Montgomery Elementary.
Oh, wow.
So she's a full-time Nini. So we're really excited about that.
I subbed there a lot when I was a substitute teacher. I
Really?
might know her.
I never felt called to teach. But I joke, my dad spent 40 years in the car business here in Clarksville. And so I joke that my current government position, is really a combination of both, because kind of that public service piece of it, but then also dealing with, financial and then selling the city, things like
Yeah.
that. So it kind of combined.
I feel like there's a lot of things. Me originally wanting to be an entertainer and then going into education for some time.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of education adjacent jobs that give you that same like, oh, my drive is to want to teach and create an environment where people can learn. I feel like there's a lot of jobs that kind of scratch that same itch.
Yes.
Love it. Talking back about the Education Enhancement Committee. So we've talked about some of the things we've done. Is there anything big upcoming that we can highlight or talk about?
With the accessibility enhancements, we have some restroom renovations currently going on, which are some large projects. The beautiful thing is so much good work was put in the beginning of helping form this project list that we're kind of a well-oiled machine right now. And so we've got our funding in place, we've got our priorities in place. And like I mentioned, if folks out there see something at a city facility that they think could use some accessibility improvement, we are always receiving of those projects and just getting them into the queue.
I'll make sure to put that link in the description of this episode too, so
Yeah.
people can find the webpage and all the information to contact. I believe, has the counter been lowered at CPD yet? Or is that still in the works?
They are still in the works right now. That is a combination with a grant. So we use some grant funding to also install some ballistic type glass just for, safety measures. And so we're like, hey, while we're already in here, let's lower the countertops. So that's efficiency there.
Love it. Looking at a blue skies view, just sky's the limit. What's a project that you just like dream of getting to do as far as some of this stuff goes?
Dream of getting to do. So I feel like some of the biggest projects that I would love to have is these large roadway projects. I know that a lot of folks, I always have to, not always have to, but I remind myself and others that, I too am a Clarksville resident. I too drive the same roads everyone else drives. I too get stuck sometimes in traffic, right? I would love in my tenure here to assist the street department, assist the mayor in getting these major roadways funded by grants. But with grant funding for roadways always comes some red tape, some additional lag time, right? So we kind of have to do those internal, benefit cost analysis to see, which projects could be earmarked. So sky's the limit. I would just love to have quick, easy grant funded roadway projects. That would be dream. But then another would just be with the Safe Streets for All, following that initiative, even when this grant ends, right? Just being able to make roadways safer for all users, but especially for those who are the most vulnerable users who don't have vehicles, who frequent, neighborhood area shops, who are having to be pedestrians just to live life, right? I want them to be safe. So that would be my dream.
Let's go back to, you brought up Safe Streets for All, and that wasn't on our plan, but I would love to talk about it anyways. Safe Streets for All is such a really cool project, and it started with our big, well, I guess it started with your job, and then we get to a large survey campaign, which if you're listening, I hope you did the survey. It was really interesting. It had like a map where you could specifically drop pins in areas that you thought could need some improvement or some modification. But tell us about Safe Streets for All.
So Safe Streets for All is really geared towards the Vision Zero, which is the national goal of zero roadway fatalities. And that is a very large goal. It might seem very far off. However, if we don't work towards it, you'll never achieve it, right? And through a grant, we were able to get an action plan. So we had an action plan grant for Safe Streets for All. We were able to partner with a consultant, and they helped do these amazing surveys. I loved the flip book look of the survey. And like you mentioned, you got to pinpoint things, prioritize things. We did some boots on the ground survey outreach. I was able to go over to Manna Cafe and meet with the vulnerable roadway users and just be like, hey, I sit in an office all day and this is what I think you need, but what do you actually need? And that was an amazing experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because I got to make friends, meet folks, and they're like, I'll tell you what I actually need. I cross right here. Or if this is happening, I go over there. And like, thank you. I would not have gotten that from a click survey. So we really tried to make sure we reached out to truly everyone and met them where they were and what they had to provide. And so just making it safer, where we looked at, installing additional signalization at intersections, doing what we call access management, where there's way too many businesses that are all dumping with individual entries onto a very busy stretch of road. How can we, help reduce the conflict points, if you will? So what really inspired me to apply for the action plan grant was just reading some articles about some pedestrians that had been killed on Boot Hill. And just breaks my heart, not only for the individual and their family, but also for the individual who perhaps hit them. That's life altering. And so that just inspired it. And then of course we do this survey, and that was one of the hot spots. And it just kind of felt like a God wink, that, hey, this is exactly why you needed to do this.
Yeah.
So
very cool. That's awesome. And I think we did get quite a lot of insight, and you're beginning to see some of the work from that now, whether it's grant funded projects or city funded projects. I feel like we've been pretty on it with sidewalks and other pedestrian safety measures as well.
Yes.
I just was doing a look at, and I know this one wasn't grants, we talked about it earlier, but I was just getting a look at the new crosswalk on Cunningham Lane. Really cool stuff, using some really cool tech to like motion activated, like lit in the street.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, we're trying to do that other places too with grants.
Oh,
So,
love that.
yeah.
I knew it was if it works well here, we want to see them more places. That's awesome to know
Yeah.
that it's in the works.
Yep.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. This is all such cool. Like, I love being able to talk about all these positive, like, big win stuff and just being able to make a better, safer Clarksville.
Absolutely.
Love it. Any other grants or anything like that we want to talk about before moving on?
I'm sure as soon as I leave this room, I will think of at least 10 more cool grants to tell you about.
Well, then we'll do another episode in a few months.
There you go. Absolutely.
You're just gonna be my co-host soon. Very cool. So that's kind of where we are with the grant stuff. Again, if you haven't, check out the webpage for Accessibility Enhancements Committee. And if you have anything you'd like to share with us, please do. Please, please, please do. But moving on, I had another thing I wanted to talk to you about just because we had a recent win. Another news release I put out recently is that we completed our Teachers Warehouse supply drive for the year.
Yes.
And it got me thinking about, we do a lot of charity work at the city as a city workforce. And it's something I love to talk about and love to brag about. And something that I imagine a lot of people probably don't really know about as far as our city workforce and how not only do they give back through their jobs, but they give back just because they want to.
Yes.
As well. And I think this is a perfect example of that. This year with our Teachers Warehouse campaign, which I believe is the second year we've done it.
It's the second year we've done it for the Education Foundation. Prior to that, we were partnering with United Way to also do back to school supplies. So we've still been doing supplies, just through a different avenue.
Wonderful. But with this one in particular, we're working with the Education Foundation, and we pick a school supply category or type.
Correct.
And city employees out of their own pocket. And I want to be very, very clear. None of this is using any public money.
Nope.
When we do these types of fundraisers and supply drives, employees, the city workforce, is dipping into their own pocket and pulling that out and making it happen. And it is 100% no tax dollars were harmed in the making of this.
Not even tax exemption.
Donation.
They have to use all their own funding.
Yep. It's in big bold letters on everything I put out to the employees.
Yes.
But this year we did Sharpie markers. Last year was Crayola.
Expo markers.
Expo markers. Sorry. But this year we did Expo markers, like dry erase. And last year we did Crayola products. This year, though, I'm going to stick with this year. We had what I thought was a very lofty goal. I admit when you put the goal out for me to send, I was like, Lauren, you're killing me.
Do you know how many like department heads reached out? They're like, is this goal correct for our department? I was like, yep.
But big goal of 16,230 markers could be purchased and donated in any quantity. I went out and did bulk just because why not?
Yeah.
But our goal, 16,230. Lofty goal. I would call it ambitious.
Yes.
We crushed it at 18,397 expo markers.
Yep.
And we got to go deliver them. It was a good time. We always do this as a friendly competition with the county.
Yep.
I'm not going to share their total. It's okay. But we did win. The mayor has a nice trophy that we picked up.
The Community Champions Trophy. We're passing it around. Yes. Or
and
we're just keeping it. I don't know.
Sorry, Wes. The trophy was a compromise to last year's. You can find the video on our YouTube. Last year it was losing mayor gets a pie in the face.
Yes.
And this year we decided to show a little mercy. We went with the trophy. But man, people wore it out.
Yeah.
It was so good to just watch those numbers climb and get to deliver those over. And I think that comes out to, you told me what the monetary value was, or Haley Green over at the Teachers Warehouse told me it came out to little over $20,000 worth of.
And the way that we picked that, it wasn't just at random. When I reached out to Haley and Robin with the Education Foundation, I was like, hey, what do you need? Because last year we collected like over 8,000 Crayola items, right? And they were like, we don't need any more Crayola. Like y'all did so well with it. We're good on Crayola. And Expo markers is one of those things that they run out of very quickly and that the foundation uses donations to go purchase. I'm like, okay, let's do 10 markers per employee. And I did question myself, as you mentioned, about the goal. I was like, oh no, because I want to win, right? I want to beat myself. I want to beat my goal. And, but yeah, people chipped away at it in the spreadsheet. And I'm just so proud.
Lots of every department did really well.
Yes.
And I think I'm not going to name any names. I think all but one department exceeded their department goal.
Yes. Yeah. We had great participation.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And we did the same last year, crushed our goal of I think it was 7,000, 8,000 Crayola products, and we beat it by 1,000 or something like that. And that just, again, employees like to help. The city workforce, we all live here. We work here. The folks that work for the city are your neighbors and your friends and family, as I say at the pre-recorded intro to this podcast. But I love talking about this because it really hammers home that the city is largely staffed by people who care about the city.
Absolutely.
And the people in it. And this isn't the only charity thing we do. Probably the biggest thing is our annual United Way campaign.
Yes.
Which is something I love to talk about. I know we're coming up on that for the year. It ends up
October is usually our month.
Yeah, it's like a multi-month thing. We'll end up having a big group chat between a bunch of department folks who like to organize it. And each department will do their own individual fundraisers. Again, no tax dollars were harmed. No tax exempt. It's all just people doing what they want to do to help United Way, one of our largest local nonprofits, I believe.
Yes. So United Way, it kind of serves as that hub, right? They raise funding for partner agencies in our community. And the United Way in Clarksville has partnered with the United Way in Nashville. And so we have expanded the offerings and abilities. And so every year, this started out 15 years ago, maybe, when I took this on. It was just pledge forms. It was employee payroll deduction pledge forms. And I quickly learned that wasn't enough. That we weren't just going to check a box. We're not check a box people here at the city. We weren't going to be those people. And so it has developed over the years, and our campaign has grown and grown. And this past year, we had almost $58,000 for our campaign, which is amazing. And we were actually the second largest campaign, right under Publix, which is a corporate campaign.
They get to do the would you like to round up at the till?
And I think they match dollar for dollar, which is fantastic for our community. But because no tax dollars are used here, we don't have a corporate match. So
ours is grassroots, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
And people get creative with their fundraisers.
Yes.
My favorite, they've already done it for this year too. IT does a Mario Kart race tournament to see who can score the best time.
Who won this year?
Bobby again. So Bobby Liebig is our second year champion.
There you go, Bobby.
I made a very silly little video with him of him pretending to be did you see with him being Macho Man Randy Savage?
I need to see that.
I made a cardboard championship belt for him that I think I wrote on the back, no tax dollars were harmed in the making of this prop.
Yeah, that's a really big one. And food is another big one.
You have one of my favorite mottos, which is charity calories don't count.
They do not count.
Love it.
That's somewhere.
Finance does the walking tacos. I love that one.
Yes, we've had grill outs, burgers, hot dogs. We have done in years past like field day type things. Who doesn't enjoy that? Last year, street department did pickleball.
Yes.
And I want to learn pickleball. Something about a kitchen. I don't know. You go in the kitchen. I'm not really sure.
What?
I don't know. I swear that's what they say. So obviously I need to learn because I hope street department, if you're listening, does pickleball again this year.
I think David told me they are.
Okay, perfect.
He was on an episode recently where we talked about pickleball.
Okay, good,
I know
good.
CPD is doing dodgeball this year.
Okay.
I think I saw.
Okay.
Lots of good
dodgeball builds character. So that's good.
Dodgeball and food, and usually there's a football watch party thrown in there by somebody or other. But it's all just, and I think we use it as a chance to team build and just blow off some steam.
Have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody benefits. But the city does. I mean, when you think about that, city employees together, if we take the monetary value of those markers, take then the $57,559 of donations to United Way, we put together almost $80,000 in like charity as a city workforce. And that's nothing to sneeze at. That's incredible. And I'm just always impressed. And I'm always impressed by how'd you get to be the person who puts all these things together?
I really don't know, other than maybe it's the corporate communications background, but I find that there are people who want to help, they want to participate, they want to be included, and they just need someone who's vocal to rally them, right? And so I'm happy to rally, and especially for the greater good of the community. Why not?
Love it. And then once you did it once, it was like, oh, Lauren's got this.
Yes. And then it becomes like, oh, hey, go ask Lauren. So yeah, but it's good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd say my favorite is the Mario Kart. Do you have a favorite one? Which department serves the best food?
I honestly love anything that involves food. I'm always going to plug Walking Tacos, Finance and Revenue, because it's delicious. I love them. So we'll have those again this year, hopefully.
I don't know if you remember, as much as I love that one, I have a traumatic experience with that one. And we brought my, at the time, 6-month-old, I believe, son. He may have been a little older than that. And he was eyeing mine, and I gave him just the littlest bite. They said they had said spice might be okay at the doctor's a little bit.
Nope.
And he got quite sick.
Yeah, nope. Dad failed on that one.
He likes spicy stuff now, but he's 18.
Conditioned
he's
him.
almost 18 months old.
Yeah.
So a bit different. Maybe this year for Walking Tacos, he can have a bite.
There you go.
But I'm joke. I have to mention my kid in every episode of this. My wife, when she listens, keeps a timer. She's like, it took him, this time it would be 36 minutes. So that's probably a new record.
You need to have like a code word.
Yeah.
Just like an Easter egg, just throw it out there and be like, did you catch it? Did you catch it today?
That's hilarious. But yeah, that's something I just love talking about the charity stuff.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of good stuff. We got a lot of people here who just love to have fun. I mean, I've had David Smith on here, so they know we like to have a little fun and do good stuff for Clarksville.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, a lot of this factored into, I'll also just shout out all the employees that did extra work, that went out of their way in their own time and in their own ways to help people out recovering from the storms last year. We had a lot of that, of people who put on vests and went out and did outreach to carry around just resource lists and help with food distro and all sorts of stuff like that. I remember we went out to a few houses together. We went and saw that woman who didn't want to leave her house because she couldn't take her dog with her to many places.
Yeah, and we talked earlier, I deal with FEMA on the public assistance side, and the individuals who need assistance, they're on the individual assistance side. But sometimes it's just reassuring just for someone who kind of understands FEMA to just compassionately speak to them and be like, hey, this person's going to come talk to you, et cetera. So yeah, just giving back. And I love that I work for a department, a mayor that promotes and supports that, right? That says, hey, you want to go serve, go serve, and thank you. So,
and I'll kind of wrap things up by giving a shout out. You mentioned we get to do the Accessibility Enhancements Committee largely because you took that to the mayor and he said, go for it. Yeah. And then we had a city council and a CFO that helped budget it and voted to make it happen.
Yes.
And so shout out to all you folks out there who know, the mayor says it all the time, that sometimes the best thing you can do as a leader is let people have the room to do what they need. And I think we have some very good people who do that. Also, belated happy birthday to the mayor, which was yesterday from recording this.
Yes, his real birthday.
Yeah. Goodness. But yeah, I think that's a good place to end it. We got to talk about grants. We got to talk about a lot of cool projects. Got to talk about charity and food. Do you have anything to add? Have I missed anything?
No, just thanks for having me here. And we mentioned if you have ideas for accessibility enhancements, please go to the website, let us know, and just be on the lookout for great grant movement because we're here, we're competitive, and we're going to bring it home.
Very nice. Now, I like to end on a fun question. Usually I kind of just pull these out of the air a little bit. As a grants writer, you spend a lot of time, in fact, writing.
Correct.
And a lot of that, there are minimum amount, like how long the proposal has to be. For our returning students right now who might have papers with word counts, do you have any good advice on how to hit that word count?
No contractions. We're going to not have any contractions in there. I also will say do not use AI. And I know people are cringing when I say that, but there are grants I actually apply for that it will kick you out if you use AI. You're better than you think. So do original words, but yeah, no contractions, maybe some therefores, just expand a little. and just reiterating, maybe repeating, summarizing at the end. I promise once you're writing about something that you're passionate about, it's going to flow. So do not be discouraged if you find yourself in a roadblock in college writing a paper over something you're not really sure of. That's not your forever. That's just a learning tool, and you're going to find something you're great
Love
at.
it. As an adjunct English teacher, I very much agree with that. I'm teaching a couple writing classes. With the AI stuff, same as with the like copy and paste from a website stuff. We get to know what your writing looks like and your style. It's not hard to tell. And like Lauren said, you're better than you think. And
Absolutely.
we're looking for improvement.
Yes.
So I like the tip about contractions. That's just good academic writing anyways.
Yes.
But just believe in yourself.
You've got this.
Great. Yeah. And on that note, I think we will close it out. Thank you so much for joining me, Lauren.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us on Public Square.